Okay, I don't know when the camera quit, but last I recall, I said that I was going to, well, I had this fitted pretty well, and I was going to duplicate it on the other side, and I did. So what we have is this piece that fits in there pretty good. I used that little spacer bit and just kept fitting and trimming and trimming and trimming. So I've got this little bit of spacer here. We brace that against and then drop it in. And we end up with, let me zoom out any further, no. A relatively good fit. It seems to be pretty straight. Both directions, lines up pretty level with the top. It sits a hair lower, but that's okay since we're going to be building up on it in order to put the rail on there. So I think that's okay. And then I've got this side here. So we have this kind of affair going on. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and hot glue those into place. And we're going to get ready to do a little DEF CON on those. And because I'm pretty happy with the fit, I think we're going to commit. Just checking one more time to make sure that looks as awesome as I thought it did a minute ago. I'm pretty happy. The end of the Stampede bits line up with the end of the Centurion. So we'll at least hot glue it in place and do some more involved looking. Okay, it's been a while since I've been able to get back to this. I've been gone for spring break and a few other things. Don't really remember exactly what track we were on before. I came out yesterday because I just had a few minutes and tried to kind of get my bearings on things and made a few adjustments, and I got this piece kind of tacked in with some DEF CON so we can pull the glue. And did I do anything? Nope, it looks like I haven't done anything with DEF CON here yet. So we will, I guess, start there. I tacked to this side of the grip. So I think we'll finish tacking putting the grip in place with the DEF CON, and we'll look into filling this hole. Both sides, of course. So, get our stuff out. I'm trying to maintain kind of I'm trying to build up this hole, or fill the hole here, but I'm trying to not just gorp a whole bunch on there. I'm trying to make enough to be sure to fill, but I'm not making sure I don't come at too much of an angle. I'm wanting to have kind of a flat face there, so because you have flat here, then an angle here, I want to have kind of flat, you know, going this way. So I'm wanting to maintain as close to that angle as possible, so it'll involve less sanding later. And right now for this first coat, or layer, so to speak, I just want to make sure I get enough to bridge the hole. And I'm not trying to get it up to where I want it for keeps, for finish, like a finish amount. Just enough to get the basic in there. I think also while that's drying, and while we're getting ready to fill in this area, still need to fill this guy, which is going to be somewhat complex because there's a whole lot going on. You have the kind of the main theme where you have kind of a flat with, looks like about a ½ inch or so at a slight angle here that just kind of dies, and then things get real wacky up here where you have like this little notch down thing, and you have this angle here and this thing here and this kind of a knocked off corner there, and this is a much steeper angle than this. So how do you summarize all this weird stuff all at once at the same time you're trying to make sense of this down here and, you know, work on getting this grip thing kind of integrated in as well? So for starters, let's see what we have to work with. We'll go to the spare parts bin. I believe earlier we talked about using the old barrel side muzzle flash suppressor cover things, using this kind of flat part to fill in this area here. So I think we'll keep those reserved in the meantime. But we've got we've got all these kind of main pieces that we cut out of the overall. So let's start here. And okay, so this is all top pieces. This is a transition piece. Here's kind of a middle area. Well, these are kind of cool. Can't remember where these came from, but it's got like a little knob thing, kind of like what we see up here, that I believe we saved just for such a purpose. This is a bottom. Is it that? Yeah, it's the same angle there. And there's the other, that guy, and those guys. So okay, so we kind of got everybody paired up, except for that, because this got split for the filler there, and who knows about that guy. So okay, and I guess we'll want to save a flat piece somewhere to fill in these little gaps here. So actually, would that really work? Oh wow, okay. Remember several times I talked about saving these little guys because they've got this kind of a cool step thing and a knob and some nice details and stuff that we might need to reuse somewhere else. And I just kind of eyeballed real quick just for the heck of it before we get too far carried away there. These angles are all weird. I don't think we'd be able to do anything with that just because it's so much. We need some pretty small details because it's a small area, and these are pretty big. So I think we'll eliminate those guys. And because I thought I had, just in thinking, would be to, if we could kind of cut this back at an angle. Where's my pointer? We'll use that as a pointer. Cut this back at a bit of an angle, and cut this at an angle too, and then have basically create a body line that would come kind of up and kind of overtake this whole area here, probably eliminate this little extra little step. So your line would just come and then kind of angle and blend in here. Kicked around that idea, but that might be a lot of undoing, a lot of cutting this area out, and a lot of trimming back on here. So that feels there. Would have been cool to use these guys, but I think it'd be kind of hard to work around this little knob. And besides, we cut the top off, and I think it'd be hard to reform that unless we're moving it in somewhere where it's set underneath. We could, like, oh heck, like even in here, but that would look weird. But as far as if we could have it in a place that's set down and there's a ledge above or something, that way you don't have to worry about trying to reshape the top of this little circle piece. But we'll hang on to these still. This is why it's so important to save all your little bits and pieces that you cut off doing integrations and even just minimizations and stuff like that. I like to have lots of weird shell bits. I've got a whole tote full of different shells and things to where I can, kind of like we did with these bits, just kind of be able to dig through a bunch of different shapes and sizes and say, okay, is there something here that's going to fit exactly what I need? So let's, oh, that's the other size. This might serve a purpose somewhere if you needed like a little step down whoop-de-doo thing. I don't think that's going to do it for us, but another thought would be, because this angle here is, I believe, the same as, in fact, I think it's tied in with this somewhere. So if you wanted to play off of this more compact body line here, you could like drag that back perhaps, or something like that, kind of do the angle thing, or even move it back and reshape. I don't know. You could do some sculpting if you want. That's where some guys go with epoxy putty, because you can just kind of like cram a bunch in there and then just be like, this is now shaped like this, and kind of look like the choose your own adventure books, kind of make it do what you want to do. But I'm liking what I saw here actually. Really makes me wish I'd cut these a little more similarly. Fortunately, we're going to be dealing with a very small piece. First thought is using this step transition here, which won't be exact, but I think almost, I wonder if we can cut it along this line here and move the transition piece to where this little step up lines up here, And we might have to trim back on this side or that side. But I kind of think, and it's cool we get an extra little screw boss here that we might be able to use. It depends on how the flywheel cage fits. I have it sitting here right now. That if it's kind of out of the area of where the flywheels are, it's nice to have a screw port kind of in this middle area, since we lost this one up here and there's not a whole lot else in this area that we can use. I don't know if we'll be able to, but it's a thought. So I think we'll have plenty of material, whichever route we choose. We may be able to use this little button, but since originally it had like 2, and I don't know what else it had in the full shell and how those parts related, it might be weird to have just a weird bump. So we might end up shaving it off anyway, and it might be the way we fit this in, we won't even need it. So, shoot, okay. First thought, I mean, we know it fits, technically, more or less. I think we can make it work. But how's that going to affect things aesthetically? We have, you know, if we pull this, so you kind of pull it out of the way a little bit and kind of look at it that way to where it's like, okay, we have this body line that kind of kicks up here and comes here, and then if it steps up and kind of blends into this shape here, I think we can pull that off. I think, yeah, where's my little biters? In a second. There. Now if we look at it like that, yeah, I think, might even be able to incorporate this little kick down. You know what? I'm thinking, I don't think we're too committed. I might try to get in and cut this piece out, this little step down, and have, instead of it stepping down or it, you know, coming down and then hitting this piece and then we try to do something with it, I might trim that off and then bring this line, because it's, you know, a pretty deep, pretty tall piece. I think we can fit it down all the way to the orange section, which will open kind of a channel, so to speak, because we still need to do something with this little gap here. So if we open this up, that adds a little more material, and then when we're filling this main area, we might be able to kind of do something that, you know, is kind of a one-piece deal and kind of goes all the way up and kind of makes it not look like, hey, you cut up a bunch of things to fill a bunch of weird holes and things. So I think we'll start doing a little cutting there. First thing I'm seeing is we have the screw port is kind of a bigger area, and it sticks out past the line that we have. So I might try to trim this line back to this kind of a molded seam looking thing, just so we have a nice straight edge to work with. And then I'll probably have to cope out a little spot here, so this will slide in, at least until we get more fitting, and then we might find out if we need to drill through or not. In fact, you know what, while we're at it, I'm just going to drop the cage in real quick to see if that's going to be an issue. And of course this is going to come back and get me because I glued that seam shut. Whoops. But the DevCon should still be green, so we should be able to just kind of wiggle our way through. Boy, if that nice flips and cuts my finger open, that'd be a bummer. How about this? Hey, there we go. And I screwed that together when I was gluing that in place. Oh boy. What day is it? I have this cage here, which looks an awful lot like the one that's going to be going in here eventually. So I suppose since we're talking about it, now would be a good time to look into any other potential fit issues, which looks like it fits along there. That's cool. Okay, it's already wanting to argue with the top there, but we're going to be changing that a little bit when we add the rail. So I think we can finesse that. But the main question was, just set that on top. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I think if we're able to use this piece in this area, there doesn't seem to be anything major getting in the way of the plywood cage or anything, so we should be able to use this little screw port, hopefully. And just for the heck of it, let's stick a barrel thingy in there to get kind of an idea of where we're at. No, something's not making sense for some reason. Okay, that's better. And yeah, it looks like even the inner barrel and stuff like that won't be causing problems internally. Let's size it up with this guy just for... Yeah, looks like even the large faux barrel isn't going to be causing any issues either. So I think we can kind of start moving in that direction. Yeah, okay. So we like this guy. So let's get these guys and snippy that. And yeah, we're gonna need to swoop that out just a little bit. So I think I'll go ahead and just... Okay, and I think I'm gonna go ahead and... Boy, I hate to just nip this off because it'll take 2 or 3. Just because we might need some of this material for something else. So I think we'll take the slow road, just to ensure that we're utilizing our material best. Now, part of me is just realizing we don't know what the actual width was of this area, which, let's see, what was this? Just looking at the bottom there, that looks like it was part of the mag release area. Like, is it over here? That doesn't look right. Interesting little cutout. So, just have to do a quick eyeball. And, yeah, I think this area that we have here was designed to work, or to fit, like, around the magwell width area, not the main body width, which is significantly wider. So, the whole magic screw port idea might not be quite as cool. Or I guess we can still make it work. It'll just take like a really, really long screw. And it won't be like a clamping surface necessarily. It'll be just kind of like a, hey, there's a screw in there, and it kind of keeps things from getting all gappy and weird. I don't know. We'll, worst case scenario, if we can't use it at all, we can just fill it. But, onward and upwards. So, straighten that up a bit. Big file. So I'm kind of looking right here, and the difference between, say, this height and this height is greater than the difference between this height and this height. So we have the debate whether we hold this line on this line, which will make this significantly lower than this, or do we pull this line up to this line and then have some room to make up here. Either way, whichever side we decide to favor, when in the course of putting the DevCon and stuff in there, we can just lather on a little bit more on whichever side and then just shape it, because it's going to be such a small amount that, yeah, it would be cool if it was perfect, and we could, you know, probably find a different way to bridge that gap. But I think it's not that big of an issue. We'll just kind of compensate if we need to. So, I think I'm gonna knock this guy out before we get too carried away, because it'll make it easier to work. Not a huge difference, but I think that just gives us a little more room. So I think we can just eyeball on this guy. I'm going to clean up the bottom of this just a little bit. There's some BevCon on there. I'm just going to clean it up a little bit so we can get a good sense of where the edge actually is. Okay, initially part of me wanted to cut out the stuff in here so I could sink this piece down in too, because I was still thinking that we could use that screw port, you know, to where it'd match up with the other one, but it's a lot deeper. So I think I'm just going to trim the bottom off, this guy, and we'll figure it out from there. Yeah, okay, that's pretty close height-wise. Still a little ways to go. That gets us in the ballpark. So, looks like we need to trim off a bit off the top, definitely. Now, since we have this amount of overlap, that was close. We could cut this area out, but I think what I'm going to do is just cut this piece down and over, and we'll have this piece come up and lap over, which will give us a nice little lap joint, which are always nice, even though it's not really a stress point, especially since we'll have so much more going on here. But I think it'll be easier to shape and just easier to manage overall. So that's what I'm aiming for there. So I think we can cut this off just past, yeah, right at this line that I kind of notched out a little bit, and bring it to right at the bottom of those little buttons. So yeah, buttons, they're out. I'm gonna get in there and clean up some of this junk just to make it easier to fit this in there, since there's a little bit causing issues. Okay, I'm pretty happy with how that ties up the bottom and everything. I think I'm going to cut the front here back a little bit, just kind of following the contour or the angle here. So just notch off a little bit. Yeah, I think we can work with that. It does create kind of a interesting situation for down here, though. Original thought here, because I believe the oh, actually neither one is really really flat. You have a short side and a long side. My original thought was to use the long side to fill up the majority of it, because the Centurion, like originally the shell is pretty flat, like there's a lot of slab-sidedness. But here around the magwell area, we've gotten really complicated because we're condensing so many details into one little area. And especially over here where things are getting weird, I don't want to confuse it too much and be too busy. So I'm going to try to use as much of the flat area just to kind of pull that flatness down a little bit further, instead of being like, hey, the top part of this blaster is pretty smooth and predictable, but the bottom gets all wacky. So originally I thought I could just stick this kind of along this bottom line here, and then it'll just be the very, very tiny bottomest most that'll have the break, and then the short side, which might even get filled in when we do all the puttying. And I think we could probably just take it to, where's my pointer? Gotta point at things. Take it to like this line here. So this is kind of this is still, you know, basic shell. So if we just brought this piece to like this line here, and then had it come kind of at an angle down, kind of following the contour of the grip itself. That kind of helped tie the slight taper, because the grip kind of not radical, but just slightly. If we kind of mimic that same taper on this filler piece, then it'll kind of make it feel a little more cohesive, maybe. So, like I said, original thought was to follow this straight line here, which pretty much lines up with that. That way it gives us, like that, pretty solid orientation, which is nice. So if we have that there, and this guy here, that gives us, tough call. There's a lot of different directions we could go with this area in here, because we still have the back part of this grip to fill, which we could just put back some DevCon back in this area, and then just really get to know our little file here, and then just file, and leave this little detail open, and then just be real careful around this joint here and stuff. And I suppose that's an option. Then we have to kind of blend this detail in somewhere as well. Oh, I was just thinking, I was looking at, get this line here on the inside of the grip. It kind of tapers in, and we trimmed some of that out. I think that was